So the pandemic 2020, it hits. And in I think February or March is when I read this article. I am scrolling through my Facebook feed and I see someone's face and I say, "Why, by golly, that looks like Santos."
Jesus Christ, though.
What is up with Santos? The
I like
stolen
this.
youth? And then I'm like, not only does that look like Santos, but that looks like Yalitza, his sister. What is this? The stolen youth of Sarah Lawrence? I knew Santos when he was in Sarah Lawrence. I mean, I didn't talk to him too much after the first year, and I didn't really understand why, but I didn't think his youth hath been stolen.
So, so it's crazy because I remember you talking to me about this because eventually you were like, "Man, I think I got something weird that I need to talk to somebody about, and I just don't know what to do about this." And you sent it to me, and I remember reading, I think this exact article because you probably sent it to me.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and I was like, "This is probably the craziest thing I've ever seen." And then the pandemic happened immediately following that.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot about anything that had anything to do with this. Because in the span of like 2 seconds, the new craziest thing that had ever happened to me started happening. I started living through real history.
Yeah, we started living through history, and then I still can't accept that January 6th, 2021 was over 2 years ago, where we nearly had a fucking coup in this country.
Yeah.
And we're still here arguing over, fraudulent electoral votes. When someone tries to take over, all right, so that'll be its own thing. But anyway, so it comes out. I'm speechless. Donnie's speechless. R is speechless. These are the friends. Donnie and I'll just say, are two guys who went to school with him. Santos and asked for money. And what I'm learning about during this time, so I don't have any contact. I mean, I have Santos's number, but I have no idea what that number is anymore. For all I know, it's going to go to Larry.
Yeah.
So I don't text him or anything. I don't know how to even reach him. But I'm glad it came out. I'm glad he's out of it. But what I'm learning during this time is that there actually was a brief relapse when in 2019, right before this article came out, Santos was going to defend Larry. But then, apparently, the FBI comes, because of course, here's what happened, right? The article comes out, and then guess who takes this shit seriously?
Yeah.
Everybody who was laughing it out of the room, because that's what good journalism does. This guy, Ezra, I don't have his last name here, but I'm sure I'll find it. Ronan Farrow, who broke the Weinstein story. These guys did the real work. And you know who else did the real work? Raven.
Yeah. Yeah.
Raven was the whistleblower that really got the wheels moving, and she didn't get, I think, enough credit for that. Even though these people cut off ties with her, she knew, it's like, you know what, they're not in their right mind. They're humans. Someone should intervene here. This is terrible. Human lives, even if they don't die, though it's within, it's possible.
Yeah.
They need help. This is beyond friendship at this point. This is humanity.
Yeah.
And she did, her part there. So Santos at one point is actually, though, going to still defend this motherfucker, even though he left. Something drew him back, but then the FBI speaks to Santos, and they play a recording of Larry trying to hit our good friend Santos with a hammer. And Santos snaps out of it.
He kind of wakes up a little bit. Yeah, that's good.
And realizes, no, this man took all this away from me. This man is an abuser. It was never me, and he does not deserve an ounce of my defense.
Yeah.
So he decides to now work for the prosecution. And now he says after seeing that, he finally realized he was in a cult. And since then, he says it was like he was a ghost moving through the world.
Yeah.
By the way, always a smart guy, always very poetic, and it was reminded of that as I was watching him. Anyway, Claudia now, after this article, and I think Dan is also interviewed in the article, Claudia calls Dan. And Dan, Dan again is the guy that Larry had break up with Raven, told him how to drink his coffee, told him he wasn't gay, did the horrible abuse to him with the pliers, the aluminum, etc. Tried to get Isabella, essentially coerced Isabella to have sex with him. All these terrible things. So Dan left. Remember, Dan left after the incident that was caught on tape. He thought he was going to kill himself, but thank God he did not, and then he left. So Dan's been out of it now for years. Mm-hmm. So remember, this article comes out in 2020. I would say that, Santos and Dan have been out of this since probably at least 2014. So there's a span of now 6 years where it's mainly Felicia and Isabella. Yalitza at some point does escape.
Okay.
He escapes the North Carolina. I forget what does it, but there's something that makes her click. I think again, just like the thing that made Santos click, the thing that Larry, Yalitza and Santos and Felicia knew each other. They're brothers and sisters. They know each other their entire lives. So there was something about that she could not do. Oh, that's right. That's right. I can't believe I forgot to say this part. Larry forces Yalitza to say that she and her parents tried to poison Felicia, her sister. So basically her parents and sister tried to kill her for working with Larry and because of Bernard Kerrick's scheme.
That's crazy, but can I just say, this guy's like focal point, this guy's insistence that every assassination needs to happen via one of the most difficult, I'm sure, methods of... We live in a world that sells guns on it. Like, you could just go... Some states have gun stores on every street corner. You could go to fucking Walmart and get a gun.
In North Carolina, probably.
In North Carolina, I'm sure. Right? But he insists that it's got to be it must be a point... I need access to this man's off-grid water and food supply. Okay? And then I need to poison him.
Because it's going to be harder to prove against in his mind.
Yeah, okay.
Poison's it's a lot harder to prove. I mean, to me, it's still ridiculous because poison still has effects,
Yeah.
But to Larry, it's easier for me to control these people, I think. Again, Larry may actually think he's being poisoned. And I think at one point he even goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like, "You're not poisoned, but what the fuck is going on with your body?"
Your blood pressure seems really fucking high.
So I think after he makes her do that, or around that time, Yalitza escapes. So now it was Claudia in the apartment in New York, and Felicia and Isabella as basically Larry's wives, essentially.
Oh, God.
Living in North Carolina. But at some point after Yalitza leaves, they move to New Jersey. So they move from North Carolina, New Jersey, and after the article comes out, Claudia finally calls Dan and comes to the realization of what happened. So now Claudia is out of this. She thought she really poisoned people, but now she realizes how much she was fucking indoctrinated and mind controlled. So now
it's just Isabella and Yalitza.
It just Isabella's and Felicia.
Felicia,
sister, who was the doctor.
Gotcha.
Okay. So there, basically, it's just Larry, his two. He thinks they're his wives. They think they're his wives, but they're under his control. And some rando that lives in this New Jersey house that let Larry stay, because everybody lets Larry stay.
I can't even begin to believe that.
So finally,
yeah,
after over a decade, Larry is evicted from Lee Chen's apartment. Okay, so that's actually what's right. That's what gets him to live in New Jersey.
Okay, I see.
Because he couldn't go to anywhere else.
I don't understand why he didn't stay in North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm a little confused as well. Something happened where he decided to leave North
He
Carolina.
might have finally gotten evicted from North Carolina, too.
He got evicted from North Carolina. All right. So the wheels are starting to come off now. On February 11th, 2020, Larry Ray is arrested in New Jersey on 9 counts of trafficking, extortion, money laundering, forced labor, and I put it should be assault too, but and attempted murder because, or at least manslaughter because he put the bag over Claudia's head, and he also on tape abused Santos and Dan.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Felicia and Isabella are there when the raid happens and Larry's taken into custody.
I can only imagine the things he must have screamed while these people wrestled him to the floor.
Bernard, Eric.
It's Bernard. Bernard's got me. Carrick's got me.
Oh, God. All right, and Carrick was released in totality from even house arrest and any sort of, because he was released in 2013, but he was, and then there was
he was under supervision for a while.
Yeah, he was released from all kinds of tracking of 2016, and this arrest happened in 2020. Bernard's had 4 fucking years, Larry.
Yeah.
All right, it's not Carrick. Anyway. Isabella, at the time of this, believes it wasn't fair and says no matter what, she will support him. And so does Felicia. This final few scenes here start off with Isabella and Felicia living in New Jersey defending Larry. He's not in their custody anymore. He cannot touch them. They're defending him. They believe that
that's really rough.
Everyone else is gone now.
Does that continue to be true today? Do we know?
I'll get there. There. Isabella believes that she did not do the things that are on camera. How? Don't know. He said that that he didn't do the things that are on camera either. That she filmed.
I mean, I don't even know how to contend. I don't have a joke there. I don't know how to contend with that.
Right. Maritza, this is Santos's mother, is trying to give an olive branch for Felicia to come home. So she's dropping gifts, cards at Larry's house in New Jersey to get her to come back.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Isabella does not respond to her mom either. So neither of them are responding to their parents. Isabella doesn't respond to her mom. Felicia does not respond to her mom.
But Isabella's already gone, isn't she? She already left.
Well, Isabella's mom is trying to call her probably after the article came out.
Oh, okay.
Larry, thankfully, though, during this time, is indeed denied bail.
Okay, that's phenomenal.
Felicia, during this time, believes that she was poisoned herself, and at the time of this, she had not practiced. So this documentary, at this point, they're interviewing her, I think, either late 2020, either 2020 or 2021. She had not practiced medicine since 2012. This is someone who got a full ride to Harvard to be a psychiatrist. It had been over 8 years. She considered herself Larry's wife. Larry, at once, she talks about the day of the raid, and they're showing all the pictures that were put into evidence. Larry has a lie detector test in his house. No surprise. Also,
oh my God,
a lie detector test, we know, is like one of the dumbest things law enforcement likes to fucking get hard over.
Sure.
It's so easy to beat it. So many of these crazy fucks beat a lie detector test. Like Ted Bundy, I think, beat a lie detector test because he's a psychopath.
Right. And if he genuinely believes some of this stuff, then it's just not.
It's basically.
What are you even testing for at this point?
So he has multiple phones. Again, no surprise. Isabella says that he's not only is Larry innocent, this whole thing feels like an episode of The Twilight Zone, which I laughed at. It's like, yeah, it's so funny that you think that, and not for the reasons that you most definitely should. Okay. Felicia says she doesn't want to feel like she's a victim. She says she is a victim, though, but of her family and the people who poisoned her and Larry. Felicia says she will not stop until everyone knows the truth and justice is served. The attorneys are finally the people who seem to get to Felicia because
Okay.
Isabella is facing potential charges because of how much even though she's a victim, she also, after a certain point, which is what tends to happen a lot in these trafficking cases too. I don't know if you saw the Jeffrey Epstein documentary, but a
I
lot of
haven't.
the women, yeah, the girls who were trafficked, some of them ended up then helping to traffic other women.
Oh, I heard that. Yeah. Okay.
So it can happen that after a certain point, you are, even though it comes from trauma and abuse and manipulation and control, you still, after a certain point, have done enough damage where you are liable.
Right.
And Isabella is being threatened with that if she does not testify against Larry. And it's possible. Yeah, go ahead.
To take it back to something that I think I mentioned at the beginning of the last time we recorded, or the first time we recorded the first part of this episode. There was a recent last podcast series of episodes about troubled teen about the troubled teen industry, and oftentimes what happens is that these kids are sent there. They're sent for doing nothing particularly wrong, and these places fuck them up so hard that they have nowhere. These schools effectively churn out their own employees, because what else are you going to do if you've been told that you're shit and nothing? You're for a couple of years, right? And so it takes troubled teens, most of whom are perfectly normal teens because they're a naturally angsty group of people, right? And turns them into people who are willing to commit the same kind of abuse that was done to them, right? And so then they effectively become culpable for the harm that's done to other people, even though they weren't originally the ones. They're taking orders from the same people who hurt them. It's crazy. It's fucking nuts. So anyway, there are parallels between these things.
Of course, but it's a all well too known cycle that a large portion of abusers have been abused. R. Kelly was abused.
Right.
I mean, after a certain point, though, we do have to say, at what point are you responsible? It can be both, right? It could be a tragedy of your own abuse, and because I think R. Kelly was abused when he was like a child,
Right.
And so was Chris Brown. And then after a certain point, it's like, what have you done to try to heal?
It doesn't mean that you can capture people, keep them in your home, or beat Rihanna literally within an inch of her life.
Right. Of course. And I don't know what happened in Larry's childhood, but obviously nothing's. I mean, Larry. The thing about Larry, again, it's like this is this mediocre white man thing where it's like there's so many opportunities here to not dig yourself into deeper shit. And he just continues to do it because no one is stopping him.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's not until now.
He seems incapable of doing it anyway, of stopping himself.
Because he doesn't live in the same world anyway. He lives in his own reality. Like I said, it doesn't matter anymore. The fantasy, the fan fiction, it's not LARP anymore. It's not live action role play. It's just LAR, live action reality. It's just LAR.
It's Larry.
Right. So, live action, real, role, I don't know, year. Because really over the course of years. Anyway, so I don't know if it's the Warriors or what's happening to potentially Isabella.
Okay.
But Felicia is finally starting to question things.
Okay, that's good.
And she starts by not living by Isabella, because Isabella is the one. She will go to any hill for Larry.
Yeah.
So her attorneys say they shouldn't live together. They shouldn't discuss. So Isabella goes to of course, the most peaceful landscape of all, Staten Island, and decides to live there.
All right.
Prosecution wants her to cooperate. She does not. But Felicia now is questioning things. At the first interview where she starts questioning things, she still believes that she met Bernard Carrick, which again, she said she met him as a child with her family in the Dominican Republic. Which just the thought of this random figure in New York City politics
having ever made an appearance there is, yeah,
involved with Mr. and Mrs. Rosario, who are just trying to give their kids a better life and leave DR. It's just, anyway. But again, she now is starting to still question things.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to untangle the alternate reality that have been playing in the glasses here.
Right. She's scared to talk to her parents because, remember, Larry said they tried to kill her.
Right.
Larry also was aiding in that, but she is interested in talking to Santos and Yalitza.
Okay.
She starts to now go back, and thank God that there was enough family pictures for her to look at these pictures and really interrogate the memories that she calls now her Larry brain, which is really scary. She feels she has her own brain and a Larry brain, but I'm sure many, especially women victims of abuse, have felt like, even guys who aren't Larry Ray but are just domestic abusers, they try to really implant their own brain in their intimate partner's head.
If 1% of the stories on Am I the Asshole are true,
yeah,
there is an alternate reality where the standards for men by women are so low that it would require a completely different kind of it requires a different kind of starting point in the brain to comprehend.
And yeah, the starting point of, hey, don't give me a separate brain entity named after yourself. Let's start with that one.
Now, did he choose that? Did he call it her Larry brain? It sounds like it's just her way of describing it.
In Larry's infinite manipulation and creativity with words, because we all know, like we said, he's Langston Hughes out here.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he would have said. I think he would have said that his reality was the real brain, and right. The actual reality was the the Bernard brain.
Bernard. The Carrick cranium.
The Carrick cranium. There it is.
No. I think these are her words. That's what she's calling it.
Yeah.
She's calling it the Larry brain. And
so that's what I mean, though. Is that, yeah.
Right.
So anyway. Yeah, some people. Yeah, look, some people. I mean, look at the case of in most other cases, I think people are just raised with these very, very strange expectations of other people, and so people are allowed to get away with anything in their lives, right? But it is really, really scary that someone can live, perhaps not a full life, but reach maturity, certainly go to school, be on the precipice of serving others and in health. And be given an entirely new. I mean, that's some Blade Runner shit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, we'll get into this later. But what the part that is missing from this analysis is really that the macro. Like Larry is one. I'll say it until the end of fucking time. Larry's just one guy.
He's just some fucking guy.
He's just a fucking guy, and he's not smart. But there is a place that Larry Ray, just like there's a place that Donald Trump can. There's a place for them in our society that gives them power. It's not that they're smart. It's not even that they need to be that powerful. It's the place that they hold is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And the place that they hold is this Donald Trump, at the very least, even though it wasn't just like Elon Musk, a lot of them, we can argue that they didn't deserve their own success. And it's a good argument to make. A lot of them were given shit. at the very least, they had businesses, and they had some things that were actually true, that if you are easily impressed, you can see all the golf courses. You could see the man that owns part of Tesla and PayPal. Larry Ray didn't even have these things. Larry Ray just makes shit up. But if you have enough pictures with Gorbachev and enough CIA-looking letters, it can, and especially if you're from an immigrant family or a family that just never associated themselves with
it can be convincing. It can be convincing.
It could be convincing, especially out of fear, because those types of guys, the world is made for them. Law enforcement, white guys with connections are scared.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later. So she needed to identify this Larry brain. But what the thing that the pictures did is it made her realize these memories aren't coming on my, why aren't these like, because it's hard to argue. This is where it's so good these pictures existed, because it's like she looks at the picture and it's like, this picture's real. I am at a point where I believe this picture is real. I don't think Bernard Kerrig is insanely good at Photoshop. Okay. I think this is a real picture. But if it's a real picture, why do I not have any memory? And that's when she realized, wait, if the memories aren't coming regularly, like instinctually anymore, there must have been an interruption here in my brain. And that must be Larry's narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And using that, because she remembers, I say Larry used basic boy psychiatry and said that your dad, because there was a day where your dad didn't see you in this dress you wanted to wear, which is something that apparently happened, that she wore a dress and her dad wasn't there to see her wear a dress. Larry, because he's the savant that he is, then said that fucked up your relationships with men in the rest of your life. Well, certainly you fall into that one, Larry. You're a fucked up male relationship. So you certainly illustrated your own self. But it's so basic. It's like it's all daddy issues. He's saying,
Yeah.
not that. Stop saying it. He's not smart. It's such an easy thing to say. Like idiots on TikTok will say that will talk about women with daddy issues.
Yeah.
You don't need to be an ex-Kosovo.
Yeah, that's really the
So
that's a level of psychology you really want to get past as soon as you're out of high school. Daddy issues being a problem.
And it's not that daddy issues don't exist, but you there's clearly a difference between someone.
It can't be the root of everything. It just can't. Look, if your daddy beat the shit out of you every single day for no goddamn reason, yeah, you've got daddy issues, and they're the root of most of your problems. Okay, everything short of that, I think you've got some some stuff you can work with, right?
But also, it's like that the relationship with someone's father, if you're a woman, I think can affect your relationship with men, but he's reducing it to like the back of a Snapple cap.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is that it can't be the root of literally every
Yeah. And he's like,
that's some shit you hear in the back of math class.
Yeah, Larry is the back of math class, except he's not even good at math.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like he's not even good at math because he thinks he's stronger with an army that has clearly has great attrition rates. That keeps going down.
Which typically isn't really a thing in most armies.
Yeah. Anyway. So Isabella still doesn't want to talk to her parents. Her parents got divorced when she was younger. Her mom has been 22 years sober now and stopped doing drugs. So even though she did do drugs when she was younger, the mom said that, when Isabella was a child, like as of 8 years old, she really started to get her shit together and not do drugs. 22 years sober is a long time. But of course, that's not what Larry's going to focus on. Larry made her hate her mom for the mistakes she made and not her trying to, all the things she's done to improve her life. And she says Larry's someone, because the documentarian asked that important question that should have been asked way earlier, which is, so what is Larry's relationship to you exactly? And Isabella says, Lawrence, she calls him Lawrence now, someone who trusts completely physically, emotionally, sexually, and personally, and has no regrets.
That is a choice. Well, not really a choice.
Felicia is now trying to see her parents in the Bronx. So she's making a very important step. she is in front of the house. I think it's the house I remember, and she can't get out of the car. Later on, she calls her mom, and you know what? And she gets herself to speak with them, and they're able to reconnect. And then she's able to go and see them. She doesn't give up, and I'm glad she doesn't. And then so Felicia is back in the ability to communicate with her parents.
Okay.
Sorry, I had different rants during these notes about my disdain for this human being. I'm just trying to filter them out to the actual progression that's going on. There's also terrible video that shows that he's also physically abused Felicia, by the way. Like, what I'm glad they did is they should have showed the violence, because this was not just the man who was mentally and emotionally abusive. This was a physically abusive man.
Right.
Again, he is a basic sexist domestic abuser who wants to prey on people he deems weak to give him control, and because he's still afraid of Bernard Kerig, who is in the documentary Just Chill. Felicia is now with her family, able to talk to her family, but Yalitza still has not, and Santos still has not. So, back to Isabella, she is now named. She has a certain deadline, and she's now named a co-conspirator in the indictment. She's either going to help out or not, because she is officially now a co-conspirator, according to the prosecution.
Jesus Christ.
So Isabella, upon being told she's a co-conspirator, said, they could say whatever they want. It all comes back to the poison. If I wasn't poisoned, everyone's career would have taken off. Santos would have graduated. Isabella wanted to be a child psychologist. Talia would have gone to law school, which I don't even know what stopped Talia. Talia had no issue. Talia, no one was stopping her. Larry was breaking his fucking parole over Talia when she was a kid. Larry would do anything for Talia. Not that that was a good thing, but
yeah,
he believes that it's all the government, it's all Bernard that stop people from achieving their dreams.
It's all Bernard.
Felicia and Maritza, her mom, go to Yalitza's door. Yalitza talks to them, but she can't open the door. It's too much for her. And Yalitza is more on the side of, she knows that she's trying to figure out what's aligned, what's not as well, but I think she just feels bad more. I think for her, it's more shame. I think she feels so ashamed of what she said she tried to do to Felicia, which is poison her, and that her parents tried to poison her. She's so ashamed of getting that Larry indoctrinated her to say these terrible things that she can't even face her family.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the other thing. Larry said that Santos's family were drug dealers in the DR, and that Felicia needed to work with him to get video from Felicia on her sister and brother of what they're doing with Bernard Kerig to put him away is the only way to redeem the Rosario as not being the Rosarios being a dirty criminal family, which is got me so mad because Larry is a dirty criminal family.
Yeah.
His name is a dirty criminal family. In fact, his real name is Greco.
Yeah, we spoke about that last time.
He changed it to Ray. And so bringing back together this Rosario family is very important to going against Larry. So Felicia now is on a mission, really, to get Yalitza and Santos together with the family, because she knows now that's not true. She knows now Larry's been peddling lies, trying to brainwash her. Her parents were never obviously criminals. They were the exact opposite. They just tried to achieve what many people consider the American dream. Many people would have said they succeeded in working their asses off to put their kids through school, and all their kids went to great schools. And now she's trying to bring together back that family. So she takes Santos. She's able to meet Santos. She calls Santos. Santos willing to meet Felicia. They go to Yalitza's door.
Okay.
And now Yalitza opens up the door. And now when she does that, they're able to all go finally and see their family. Isabella, finally,
she's staring down the barrel here.
Yeah, she's finally seen as a co-conspirator.
I'm gonna say I hope this isn't crazy, but it
Yeah,
really is. It really does make her seem a lot more suspect. I know she's also a victim here,
yeah.
but I mean, I think defense of Larry reaches a certain point where it's like there is really a point not of not turning back, because of course we want her to do that, but it's just it's scary how everyone else needed time and needed to heal, but decided like,
Mhm.
okay, now I know some shit's wrong. They might have believed everything, right? And they still reached a point where they were like, okay, you know what? Let me take a big step back and really think through this. And they got there. And then there's Isabella, right?
Yes.
Who was given every opportunity to no longer have to double down, but chose to double down every time. That's a really really difficult thing to come back from.
She's really in it. She feels she owes so much of her life to Larry, which she does not.
No,
She's not going to testify against him. It's almost like, though, you could tell, at least in the interviews towards the end, it's a little harder for her to really address each issue by issue. The only thing that she can address really is that she owes Larry. That is what has encapsulated her. That it's almost like it's almost secondary what he does, because she feels, she's owed so much to him for how he's helped her. Now, the her lawyers are trying to get her incompetent to stand trial, because they think she's so gone, she's so lost it, that she should at least be seen as some sort of diminished responsibility. But after evaluation and going through this process, she is deemed competent to stand trial. She does not want to be deemed incompetent to stand trial. She wants to be deemed competent. She believes that it's all part of making her and Larry look crazy. She loves Larry. And that's the thing. Throughout all this is a romantic aspect. And even though Larry kind of, I think, shifted a lot of his maybe fucked up emotions to Felicia sexually, he is still with all three of them. Like, they always have to sleep together. He said they had a rule of you cannot have clothes in the bed. Of course, there's a Larry rule like that, and they have their position on either side of him. So there's also this very physically intimate component here that he has created that is all fucked up between being a father and a romantic partner to her.
yeah, well,
So she's happy that she won't be deemed of diminished capacity and that she will stand trial as a fully competent adult. She's happy about that.
yeah,
But she stops returning the calls. The trial goes on. She stops returning calls from the directors and the interviews. The trial goes on. Um, Felicia says she doesn't want her to go to jail. I thought this was very interesting, a very like introspective point. She said, because if she goes to jail, it's easier for her to have anger and to not really do the healing and interrogation she needs. But if she didn't go to jail, there's a chance that if she's out and Larry's in and she has to face the rest of her life, that maybe Isabella will finally think about what she's done and who Larry is.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know how much I buy that in its entirety. It's not like they're going to be together in jail. You know what I mean? It's not like she would be in there forever. So it could also be the thing. It could also be the kick in the pants she needs to take her out of the delusion that she's in that she's in the clear.
Hmm.
So I don't know. It just depends on what level of insanity we're at that day. You know what I mean? But this is what I mean about this person being so far gone, is that it's like,
Yeah.
even if she decided to start making good on that, by the time you are also being indicted for these crimes, like that needs to set off some alarm bells. You know what I mean? It has to do something to your psyche. You have to show signs of being in there, right? Because if she's still effectively enthralled with Larry Ray, I mean, you've got no idea how deep she's willing to take that, how many layers deep she's willing to let that sit past a certain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really scary.
It is. I mean, again, it's again to this a little more later, but it's this debt she feels she owes the man that she cannot get past anything he does, like trying to put actual reason into it. She feels that nothing in her life could go worse. She's saying that because of the government and everything, what was supposed to happen was in the future, Larry and Talia, Talia would have her kids. Talia would have kids with someone. Larry would be just the cool grandfather. They would all watch TV together. I don't know where she thinks Felicia fits in all this.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no. This is already completely off the fucking because she's his daughter's age, is she not?
Yes.
All right. So listen, man.
He's her daughter's best friend. He's fucking his daughter's best friend.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot about some of the details. And
Yeah.
where is the daughter during all this?
I don't know, actually. That's something I'm still a little confused about. I know Talia graduated, so she was, but she did not live in the apartment after a certain, like she was there for like a summer or something, but she lived on campus in Sarah Lawrence through
It
2015.
it might be a lack of her presence that let. Well, I don't exactly want to pin all of this on her because there's a part of this where she's clearly in on it at the beginning, but is also a child, his child, and I'm sure does not understand the nuance of all the insanity her father's introducing to her life. But if it happened, if it otherwise seemed to be a coincidence, I think maybe her being gone and not living in that apartment with the 14 other fucking people who live there might be the thing that let Larry introduce some of the insanity too, because there was that clear cutover that we talked about, right, where like he's basically some self-help coach while he's living in the dorm, and then they go live at the apartment, and like overnight, or maybe not overnight, but very quickly, he turns into this insane meathead ordering people around construction projects in his own apartment, right?
Yeah, I think he certainly
Having
felt.
very strange sex with people. It
I
has
think,
to be said,
yeah,
right?
that's the part I think he certainly felt. You know what? I would like to think, obviously, that he certainly did not want to do that with his daughter around. So I think that gave him some more freedom. But I also think that he feels his daughter is just not someone he needs to quote unquote fix. His daughter's perfect to him.
Right.
And all these other kids, her friends, need to be fixed and need to be part of his army. She's been a part of his army from the start. She believes anything he says. So, and has stood by him, but we just don't see much participation from her. But then again, Larry's doing all these weird projects and fucking uh, covert black ops with co-eds.
Yeah, right.
It's like Talia doesn't need to be a part of any of this because she's already trained or whatever Larry wants. She already is that.
Mm-hmm.
So finally, there was a detail I forgot to mention, that there was a point when I think Felicia was thinking of going back to work or something with something medical related, and Larry rips up her documents that are extremely important. And I just wanted to throw that in there to remind us how much of a terrible person he is.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And it's probably all its own crime, also.
finally, as the trial is going on, I don't know what does it, but even though she stops at first responding, something happened where Isabella realizes, at least in a statement, that she was wrong.
Yeah.
And she says,
It could just as easily be realizing that she doesn't want to go, take the hit with Larry.
with Larry, and she pleads guilty just to money laundering. Because Isabella was helping to launder the money that Claudia made through the
Through escort.
through prostitution. Yeah. The fucking nearly $1 million that she did. I now recognize that Lawrence not only hurt me, but used me in a way that I caused harm to others. To the victims, I am deeply sorry. So we don't know beyond that.
Sure. Okay, that's a
serious-
statement.
How serious it is, but that is an improvement. She wasn't even going to do that. She was going to throw herself to the wind
Yeah.
for this man. So at least that happened. And now for the results. On April 6th, 2022,
Wow.
Larry Ray, 12 years, 12, after meeting these students on campus, after 1 month after your boy and Donnie touched down. That did Larry touch down on April of 2010. Larry Ray, or Larry Greco, was convicted on all 15 accounts. All 15 counts. At 63 years old, he was sentenced to 60 years in federal prison without parole. So if he was to get out, he would be the oldest man alive at the time. And even though, for whatever reason, the guys like Larry and Trump tend to do whatever to themselves and live, I don't think Larry's going to make it out of this one.
Yeah. Hopefully he isn't eligible for parole.
And I said, what do you know, Larry? You LARPed yourself into jail.
You did it. Now it's not role playing. Now someone is trying to poison you.
If you just shut the fuck up about Bernard Carrick, none of this would have happened. After all this, I just feel like what we're missing is that it's not just Larry Ray. It's like, what allowed Larry Ray to operate for 12 years?
Well, there's a lot of things, right? I mean, the failure of anyone with even a shred of power over the situation to do something about it would be a pretty thorough start, I think, right? Like the second look, I mean, I'm not planning on having kids, but if I did and I sent them away to college, I would want to know that if the dean of the school heard that a 50-year-old man was living in a dorm somewhere on campus, that some shit would be done about that. Unless by some strange fucking chance that guy is also a student at the school, right? I guess it could happen. I don't know. Right? If a guy who doesn't go to the school is living in a dorm and he's like not under the age of 25,
yeah,
I want some faith that someone's going to do something about it. The head of the school needs to do something about it, right? Department of Homeland Security. Hey, there's trafficking going on. What are you, an idiot? Get out of here. Interesting call by them. Also very surprising, given that there was also, I don't know. I just feel like with the it's not surprising to hear that they don't take human trafficking happening under their noses seriously, right? Because I feel like we've heard that a lot about the police. We've heard a lot that, like, if you're a woman and you're sexually abused or raped or whatever, and you go to the police, again, you get laughed out of the room at some places, right?
Mhm.
This thing about them not taking over-the-counter, not over-the-counter, prescription medicine abuse seriously, you would think that would really get their goat. You know what I mean? Larry just like slamming Adderall pills. I don't know a single law enforcement agency that wouldn't leap at the opportunity to put that guy through the floor on handcuffs.
He's been in jail. He has a record.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Oh, well, there you go. That's right. That's the very first thing we learned about him.
Yeah, it's not like this guy is someone that it's like it's only when it's at their convenience.
So it's the vacuum of responsibility by an authority figure. Number one. You could say for some of them it's a troubled family life, although it certainly sounds like the Rosarios were. I don't think I would necessarily call them a troubled family. They had struggles, right?
Yeah.
Probably not a lot or any money, but they worked hard. They really seemed to love each other up until Larry got in the mix. So it really is just this. It really is just this very strange part of the brain that can be convinced to believe pretty much anything in the presence of someone who's confident enough to. Really, it's marketing. This all went down because of very, very good marketing by someone who really wasn't very good at it.
But I also think, again, the part that's missing from the analysis that we've seen so far is, why did the Rosarios come out the worst? I think we need to talk about what we've talked about during this, which is that if you come from an immigrant family, you are 10 times more susceptible to a few things. One, not knowing certain dynamics of a country. Two, if a white man says he's in law enforcement, it's just fucking scary. If a white man says he's in law enforcement and has these connections, what he says goes, especially if you're a black or brown immigrant in this country. And Larry, when we want to talk about what Larry knew and what he didn't know, where schizophrenic, that he knew.
Right.
He knew how to.
Well, he certainly understood how to manipulate people, and I'm sure it wasn't lost on him how to manipulate someone who spoke his language worse, right? Who knew his culture worse, and who couldn't discern him from actual law enforcement, for sure.
That he saw that clear as day. He said, I bet I can not only get the money, I can get, for lack of a better term, your women, to suit me, because I can play a role of a patriarchal figure that Santos will latch onto, but I can also play a role of a patriarchal daddy issues bullshit type thing that I can play into to get a woman much smarter and much more capable than me. And the thing is that we as a society allow for mediocre Larry Rays to operate unfettered, pretty much, until they bother a Bernard Kerik, until they bother an FBI agency. The government doesn't respect Larry Ray, but they also don't really care about Larry Ray.
Well, no one did until someone wrote an article. But what publication did Ezra get that article in the first place?
It was the New Yorker. It was either the New York Magazine or the New Yorker.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And that's the same.
And the second you point out, like, hey, motherfuckers, look what's happening right under your noses over here.
Right.
Look at this, and you're not doing anything about it. Then suddenly you've kicked the fucking hive.
Right. That's what it takes. It's got to make them look bad, because if it doesn't conflict with their interests and it doesn't make them look bad, why am I gonna care about a bunch of kids? It's their choice. Whatever. Who cares what this? The thing that I don't get is, like, I think that they would care about someone lying about being in uniform. I thought they gave a shit about that. I thought it would matter that a Marine is saying that this guy's not a Marine, but he says he's a Marine. I thought the Army cares about that shit. I thought it would matter if you think you're in government, FBI, CIA, if you make those claims and you're not. That I thought law enforcement cares about, because they love their fucking profession.
I wouldn't be surprised if they hear it so often from crazy people that they don't. That again, they just don't take it. It doesn't even register with them.
I always come back to this. I forget if Damon Young wrote it, but it was somewhere between Very Smart Brothers and The Roop. I forgot if it was before they merged or not. But it was like, how close basically is any white man to a cop? And I keep thinking about that when I think of Larry. It's like, what really, even without the uniform, Larry Ray for 12 years was able to convince people that he was basically a cop, a high up cop, but a cop. And if you could get away with that for so long, even someone with a criminal record,
eventually it just becomes true, doesn't it? I mean, up until he was arrested, it was true for some people.
It was true to the people who were under his control, who thought that if a cop is telling you something, if a cop tells you you broke something, if a cop tells you you tried to poison me, it's like, wow, I guess I'm lucky that I'm not in jail right now. Especially if you're a Dominican family that came here that still doesn't speak English well, that thank God you were able to put your kids through college, but that doesn't mean that there's not a part of you that thinks at any given moment, I know that I'm not at what this supremacist society looks at as the high pickings. And that if me or my children are accused by a top cop of doing something, I gotta listen to them, because white people have been exploiting immigrants since the start of this country. It's like, who am I to say that my son did not do something wrong and owe $300,000 to the government? Because Larry Ray is the government. Larry Ray is a cop. Larry Ray is the army. He is all these things that he says he is, even if he's none of those things. Because we have allowed for white man can LARP for the longest time in this country. We have allowed it to happen until there is tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just wish that more people saw this as, when the next time a guy takes a fucking scroll that says he was in Kosovo out of his fucking breast pocket
A scroll.
and says, and like, we gotta nip that LARP in the bud.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
absolutely.
we can't, as you've said before, we gotta have somebody say, man, that's weird.
It's that, but I also yeah, there's man, that's weird. But I also do think that even for people with all the context, identifying bullshit is it's a learned skill, you know. And the rest of the story that is not the Rosarios are a testament to that. You know what I mean? Yes, there were some people who had kind of rough upbringing, but a lot of them didn't. Right? A lot of them were perfectly average middle class kids going to a liberal arts school, somewhat sheltered probably, right? But maybe therein lies the problem, is that it's like they've just never encountered this level of bullshit before. And not being able to pick that out isn't it's not a weakness, you know what I mean? And living a life free of bullshitters is not it's privileged, but it's also it's also normal. You know, like,
Yeah.
most people don't have to pick that out of the crowd. You know what I mean?
No, but most people, even if they didn't, like, even if you haven't been riding the green line all of your life, like yours truly has,
Yeah.
there should be something, especially in the 21st century, that tells you this guy's off. I don't know what, even if you don't know what it is.
Look, I'm not arguing that any day of the week, right? But like, I mean, maybe that's what this guy's sphere of influence represents, is that it it's crazy to, like, it's not without the it's not totally impossible in my mind that he's able to trick a family of people completely new to this country, right,
Well,
into doing his bidding.
yeah, that's just taking advantage.
And it's way crazier that he's able to do it to people who
Mhm.
have this culture. We're raised here. Ostensibly, we're from the area, except for this one person from Texas. But also, like, I also don't think it's too much of a jump, right? To go from, hey, we're not from here, right, and therefore easily taken advantage of, to, these are kids. He met them in college. They have no fucking clue what's going on, right? Having someone who projects authority just show up in their lives and then tell them, like, hey, by the way, I'm like the greatest person you've ever met. I've witnessed shit like that happen on a much smaller and less
Yeah,
criminal scale. um,
right.
um, Plenty of times. I mean, I I went to school with not undergrad, but I used to attend classes with someone who regularly couldn't stop talking about how phenomenal their prior work was, despite the fact that they were just surrounded by all of us trying to get a secondary education post college, right? And so yeah, he was easy for me to pick up on because I had met someone very much like him in college, right? But a lot of other people, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say they were like infatuated with the guy, especially not to the degree that he wished they were. But you can kind of sense a room getting pulled in that direction a little bit, getting pulled towards him, right? When there isn't this immediate like, all right, shut the fuck up, I mean, like there's it can happen, and I mean that's really there is just something about the psychology there that is completely wicked, and it's crazy how we don't examine it more.
The other issue is that we talk a lot about, just like when we talk about sexual assault, we talk about stranger danger too much. We don't want to admit that the person, the authority figure who rolls up and is someone you know, is the father of someone you know, can be the most dangerous person.
Right.
That's the other problem here. Larry was normalized very quickly because he was Talia's father.
Yeah.
If Larry was a guy on the street, he would have had less pull.
Absolutely.
So much pull
and isn't the majority of abuse committed by people that victims know? Like vast majority of abuse.
And rapes, spousal murders, it's all close. If you raise someone with either a very high unquestioning respect for authority or no discussion of how to deal with authority, they are much more susceptible to do that. And that goes back to what you were saying about not having to deal with something. Well, it's either that you don't have to deal with, or it's more like you haven't been coached on how to deal with authority.
Sure.
Which is why the upbringing of a group of, let's say, Black kids in East New York might be different. And that's why you hear a lot of Black families say, you can't make all these comparisons to upbringing because have you had to tell your child how not to be killed by the police? And I'm not saying that would have saved everybody from Larry who's non-white or hasn't grown up in a very white space, or maybe has a too trusting and too a view of white authority that I think Larry's exploiting on an immigrant family too. But I am saying that the experience there, it's much more likely if you know you will come in contact with authority, it's much more likely that you are at least trained on how to deal with it within your family and within people around you. And many of the people who dealt with Larry did not have that experience. Or you're told to believe authority so much that when an authority figure comes through, who's not your father, who's not your uncle, who's not the cop down the block, you're too trusting.
Yeah.
So it's the lack of knowledge, the lack of experience, or this too trusting attitude can happen. But I want to kind of close as positing this. It's kind of replicating this closing argument from A Time to Kill, which is a good movie with Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you've seen it, Samuel L. Jackson.
No.
And McConaughey ends his presentation defending Samuel L. Jackson, who shot two people, one of whom assaulted his daughter. And he says, he lays out all the conditions. So let's lay out all the conditions. You got a guy who was somebody's dad that no one knew, but somebody's dad, came in, slept on the couch, spent weeks around your children, said he was in the army, said he was this, took out articles, did random push-ups on the floor, gave your kids advice, had them stay with him during the summer. Everybody slept together. You went to different houses. You thought it'd be a good experience. He's roaming around campus. He's saying he has all this experience that he can impart on your child. Now let's say he looks like Santos Rosario Sr. Would any of this have happened? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Because a darker skinned Dominican man who doesn't speak English much ain't getting the rope that Larry Ray got. by society and by people around them, intentionally or unintentionally. If Santos Rosario Sr. went to Sarah Lawrence with a bunch of white girls, white women, on their couch, that alone Bud nipped. He could have been ex-military. There's people in ex-military who are Dominican who don't speak English well, but they are good ex-military. He could have. There are people in government who may look like him. Ain't no way. There is a reason Larry Ray Greco LARP Sr. was the one who was able to get away with this and not someone who looked differently. Yep. So, this was quite a ride. Thanks for staying with us. Whoever hears this one day under, the czar of Barron Trump. And when this is finally unearthed from the time capsule and heard by 7.5 people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks for sticking it out.
Yeah. And to there being at least one fewer Larry Ray in our existence, in our real action.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right.
See you in the next one, folks.